Welcome. We're going to be creating a regular expression that's going to match for email addresses. So picking out all of the email addresses from a block of text. The text is going to be sitting within the input. We've got a button that's going to provide us a way, or the user a way, to create an action on the page. And then with JavaScript, we're going to take the input value, check it, and test it against the regular expression for the email. If it is a valid email, the feedback will be valid email. The text will be green. If it no longer is going to be a valid email address, we get the response back of not an email, and the text will go red. So until it's updated and it's once again a valid email pattern, then it's going to go green. So this is just a quick way that you can create an input area, then create a regular expression to match for a pattern, and simply check to see if that pattern is a match. Created an index file. I'm going to be linking to a JavaScript file. So first of all, we're going to set up the HTML elements. We're going to need to have an input element, and we can set this one to be type as text. Since we're going to be testing for an email address, and the HTML5, if you set it as type email, that will automatically have the check there. So we want to try to avoid that, and that's why I'm setting it as text, because we want to manage this with just JavaScript. And then we've got a button that will run the check. And you can use this as a regular expression check using different patterns to match within the text area. So in this case, we are just going to be looking at the email. And then for the last element that we need for the page, we need an area to output the response back. So I'll just call this results. And this is where we can output the results back to the user. So this can just be a blank div. Next, we need to click and connect it to a JavaScript file. So setting up a source file, and I'm going to call this app1.js, and this is going to be where our JavaScript code is going to go. So once we save that, and we're going to go ahead and create the new JavaScript file, and this JavaScript file is going to be sitting within the same directory. So go ahead and run the HTML file in the browser. I'm going to make the browser window slightly bigger, so we'll go up to 200%. With there, we've got the input, we've got the button, and with JavaScript, we're going to make all of the functionality. I'm also going to open up the developer tools. So using the inspect, that will open the developer tools window. I have it docked to the bottom, and going into the console, just refresh it, make sure there's no errors, and we're ready to start adding the JavaScript. So first of all, in the JavaScript code, we want to select the page elements. So selecting the button, so we can apply some action to the button. And I usually like to select them as objects in case we want to make selections of them, and it makes the code a little bit easier to read and go through if you need to do any debugging. The next element that we want to select is going to be the input. So I'm going to give it a variable name of my input. Use the document query selector, and we only have the one input element, so I'm going to go ahead and keep that as the input element. And of course, if you have more than one input element, you're going to have to add a better selector when you're selecting that page element, so you're selecting that particular input field that you have on the page. And the last element that we want to select is going to be the element with a class of results. So just make a selection of that, and that should give you all three page elements in a usable format. I'm also going to update the my input and set a value to that. So this will populate some information into there. So this is useful while I'm doing the testing so that I don't have to constantly go to the input field and add in information. So we want to test for an email pattern. So let's start out by setting it up as an email pattern. So there's the populated information within the my input field. Selecting the button, going to add an event listener to the button. The event that we're listening for is going to be a click, and we can just do this as an anonymous function that's going to be checking to see when the button gets clicked, we're matching for the regular expression. So also, let's create the regular expression. I'm going to create this as a global variable where we have access to it within all of the functions, and the pattern that we're matching is going to be using the global and also for case insensitive. So it's actually not going to matter what case it is for the letters that we're looking for. And next, let's start selecting, and we're going to be making some matches towards checking to see if there is a pattern that's being returned. And for the email matches, there's a website called regex, and this is an excellent resource where you can add in different pattern matches and check to see if their pattern is being matched. So we want to match for email addresses. We want to be able to just highlight those and pick those up. It'll also, under the tools, it'll give you the listing of the different capturing groups that we're selecting. So right now it's matching for the pattern from the letters A to Z. So let's add in some additional pattern matches. So also matching in the lowercase, and then also matching in any numbers, because we know within the email there's a possibility of numbers. You also have email addresses with a dot. They can also have an underscore, and they can also have a slash. So we want to select all of those as pattern matches as well. So we'll add those in afterwards. So right now we're looking for a pattern match, and we're selecting all of the letters, upper and lowercase, as well as the numbers 0 to 9. So let's add to this selector. We're going to be selecting and looking for the @ symbol. So that selects out all of the examples where we have some text, and then selecting the @ symbol, and then selecting the additional text that's going to be matching until the next character that doesn't match within the pattern that we're looking for. So we want to also capture the previous part with the dots. So let's go ahead and we're going to add that in. So selecting the elements and the results that have a dot, also the underscore, and then also the dash. So that accounts for all 4 of the email addresses that we've got within the text area that we want it to match against. So next up, we want to get the rest of the pattern, and that's going to be the subdomain, and then dot, and then the main domain name. So we want to select all of that information next. We've got the @ symbol, and then after the @ symbol, we're going to be looking for a set of characters again, and you can copy and paste using the same set of characters, so that will return back all of the characters, and that doesn't change the current results, but we want to get just that word until we don't find a match anymore. So let's make a selection, do a plus, so that's going to add in and select out all of those characters. So the next part that we're going to be looking for the pattern match, and as we can see, we're already picking out the emails, but we want to fine tune this filter, the pattern match, that we're also always looking for a dot something or other. So right now it's going to be matching those, but we want to make sure that that is part of the pattern. So this one here is no longer a valid email address because it doesn't have a .com. It's just got the example.com. So we need to make sure that we're matching for a dot. So selecting it and doing a / dot will once again highlight these patterns where we've got the dot and then we've got a set of characters after that, and we've got some text before that. So we want to make sure that we're matching this pattern exactly, and we can copy again the characters that are going to be valid within the email address, and that will match out all of these emails. And notice that this one here, since this one is not valid, it's not being matched. And then just add a plus sign to get any additional characters. So this pattern here allows us to select out all of the matching email addresses, and once this one is valid, this one is also going to get highlighted. So right now we're finding 5 matches within all of the text, and they're the ones that are highlighted. So we're good to copy this pattern and then use that within our code as our regular expression pattern that we're going to be looking for. So just / that. And I'm going to update this, the flags that we're looking for. So looking for global, so it's going to return back all of the results, and then case insensitive with the I. So that gives us the regular expression that now we can use to check to see if a pattern has been matched. And that's the regular expression that we're going to use in order to create the test on. So right now within the console log, we're going to test on the regular expression. So using the test method for the regular expression. And then the content that we want to test, and that's going to be coming from the my input value. So add that into the brackets there as the argument for the test method. And now let's do a check. And right now it's coming back as true. If it's not a valid email, it's coming back as false. I'm going to apply a little bit of styling to make the width %. So that gives us a larger field that we can see. So we can see the entire contents of the email. So now that we've got a test and it's coming back as a Boolean value, so either true or false, we can update this console log and add in as a condition. So if it's true, what we want to do if it matches, and then what we want to do if it doesn't match. So we want to provide some output to the user. So within the results, we can select and update the style and set the color. So we want to set the color to be green if it's a valid match. And then within the results, can set the text content valid match. So if it's a valid match, it'll say valid match. We don't have anything for the else yet. So let's copy these two items and update this. So we want to set it to be red. And we'll just say not an email. So that will be the output that will be provided back to the user. So if it's not an email, we get back the feedback to the user, not an email. If it is a valid email pattern, it'll say valid match, or we can say valid email. So that's how you can use a regular expression to match against a text input content and then return back some feedback to the user with the results for that match.